Create and execute Windows command files, string input function. This is the first of several general-purpose batch code input functions. These functions will serve as building blocks to help you develop your own special-purpose programs. This function, getString, prompts for and accepts user input strings. The functions will be used in the file management program that will be described in a later video. Many useful code sections or snippets are described in these videos, and those will be collected in a video, How Do I, in this same playlist. You are watching a Tom's Tech Notes video. If you like this video, please wait until you are finished watching it, then click my name, Thomas Wallace, to visit my channel page. A welcome video will play to describe my other videos. You can copy the function and its test driver described in this video from my website. Click the script webpage link below this video or type this address into your browser's address box. Copy the test file code into a .bat file with any name. Save the get_string function in file get_string.bat. Both files must be in the same folder or both on the desktop. This video shows how to use the getString function using this test driver. The next video will do a detailed walkthrough of the function code and describe how the code works so you can customize it to fit your needs. Function parameters, shown here, allow the programmer to customize function operation for each input his program needs. Here is the call with 5 parameters, and here's what they are. Value is the variable that the value returned from the function will be in. Prompt provides a message to tell the user what input he needs to make. Default tells the getString function what to return if the user doesn't enter anything and just presses return. Choices, if the program needs inputs from a particular list, like Tom, Dick, Harry, you specify that in the choices, and then the program will check the user's input against those specified choices, and if it doesn't match, it'll ask him for another choice, telling him that it's an invalid entry. Show choices tells the getString function whether or not to show the list of choices. For instance, if you were asking for a user name to use a program and you didn't necessarily want to show on the screen who the authorized users are, or if you were asking for a password, you certainly wouldn't want to show on the screen what the accepted passwords are. There are defaults built into the program for all the parameters other than, of course, the value. Value is a required parameter, and that's, again, where the return value is put. The rest of them are optional parameters, and the getString function will provide defaults for those if the caller doesn't specify them. They're shown up here. The default for the prompt message is nothing. If you didn't want to tell somebody sitting down at the computer what sorts of inputs are requested, if you don't specify prompt, it'll just print a greater than symbol and expect him to know what he's supposed to enter. Warning, do not use a variable called prompt spelled correctly in your program. There is a system variable called prompt that it can interfere with. The default value is the value returned by the program if the caller doesn't specify a default, and the program will return NONE if the user just presses return when he's prompted for an input. Choices specifies a list of choices, but the default for the choices is nothing basically, but it will display the message, you may enter any string. If you use this default, then the user's string input's not checked against anything, it just returned to the caller, whatever he types in. Show choices defaults to yes, and that tells getString whether or not to show the list of choices. And again, like passwords, you wouldn't necessarily want to show them. If you have this on yes and you don't specify choices, then it will show you may enter any string. If you have this on no, and that isn't the default, you would have to specify that in your call. If you had set this to no, it would not tell you whether or not there was a list of choices or whether you could enter any string. You would have to know that. Now the program is very versatile in how the caller can specify the parameter values. The way I have it set up here is the long way, and you put variable names after the required prompt, after the required variable value. It is required, but you could change the spelling, or you could change what this word says. Whatever this word says, that's the variable that will contain the return value after you call the function. So in this case, it's in variable value when it comes back. But again, you can change that name if you wanted to in your program. Prompt is the name of the prompt parameter, and again, you can change that name. The way I have it set up, here are the names I'm using for the parameters, and there are the initialization values for this call. Remember, it's for this call. I have a commented copy of the call so that I can construct different versions of it for testing, and I don't have to fix the original statement each time I do that. I can just copy this and uncomment it and alter it and comment that one, and that way it makes it much faster to test. So now the defaults I have set for this call, prompt, it will say please enter your name, and we will be demonstrating this at the end of the description of the test program here. Then I'll run through some demonstrations. Okay, prompt is going to say please enter your name. Default says if the user just presses return after it prompts him, it'll return none space given as the value. Choices for the test, it'll say Tom space Bill, so he has to either enter Tom or Bill or just press return. If he does press return, it will return the default, and that won't get error checked because you've told the program if he doesn't enter anything, this is what I want returned. Show choices, again, is set to yes right here. That means that it will show the choices before it prompts the user for input. If this were set to no, it wouldn't show him the choices. So what the test structure does, prompts him for his inputs using these values. This is an error check in case when you program the call, you forgot to put the value parameter in, because that one is required. Otherwise, the program doesn't know where to return the value. So if you forgot to put value in your call when you wrote a program calling getString, getString would return an error code that says you didn't give me the first parameter, and that code is tested here in my test program, and you would test it in your program. It's set to 99 in the getString function, and if it is, then you get an error message displayed that says error 99. This is how it returns it in a variable called error level. Error 99 returned from called file getString. Press any character to terminate this file. Then when the pause will stop the program and ask for a letter, any character, and ask for any character, and then it'll exit and close the screen. This is the way you display or access the name of the currently executing batch file. In this case, it's my test batch file. This is a special character combination that gives you the name of the executing batch file the code is in. In this case, I have called it test get underscore string, and that's what this will show in my demonstration later. So if he returns if he's got a valid call and he enters anything, it'll return it, as I said, in variable value. The test program will display returned value equals and the value. And then, the way I have my test set up, if that value is not Joe, it will loop around and ask for another input. And if that value is Joe, the program will quit. It'll fall off the bottom here and close the screen. You can't enter Joe the way it's set up right now, because It'll only accept Tom or Bill or a carriage return and return none given. If, for instance, I put Joe in the list, now the user can enter Joe and it will stop because the value returned will be Joe. And we'll demonstrate those things later. First, I want to show you how I can change these parameters. You can change them several different ways. Number one, show choices refers to it. Show choices is set right here. You can get rid of that parameter and use the program default, which is yes, by just taking off everything after the equals, or by taking off the entire line, or by removing show choices from the call. Any one of those will tell getString, oh, the caller didn't specify show choices, use the default in the program. If you want to use this method to delete parameters, you can delete from starting on the right end because these parameters have to be in order. If you delete one in the middle, it would then, if I deleted this parameter from this list, it would then think that choices was the default. It would screw everything up. So you have to delete it from the right. So that would say the caller didn't specify show choices. That would say the caller didn't specify choices or show choices. Prompt, if you don't specify any of those things, it won't display a prompt, but it will display a greater than symbol so the user will know where to type his input. So that's the way you can delete from parameters, by deleting from the call list. But there's other options. You can delete individual parameters, as I said, by deleting everything after the equal for that parameter, or deleting the whole line for that parameter. Or you can simply, I'll do it on the comment line. Remember, this line is commented. If I wanted to just eliminate choices easily, what I would do is just type an X here. Now it turns out any variable name here that's the name of a variable that's not initialized will tell getString the user didn't specify that variable. So I don't set X up here anywhere. So if I put X in here, it will tell the program that, hey, he didn't specify choices, but he did specify all the other parameters. That way you can delete parameters in the middle without having to start on the right end and work your way back. Now that's the way you can delete parameters. There's another way you can specify parameter values, and that's by putting them right in the call statement. So for instance, I had it set to yes, and I believe that is the program default. So I could specify no by either changing this to no, and notice up here, quotes are optional up here. If I put quotes around it, it works exactly the same. If I don't put quotes around it, it still works the same. Now, if you wanted to put that in the call statement itself, you have several calls in your program, you got a bunch of common parameters, but you want to say change the choices. What you do is this. You put the new set of choices in, and you do have to put quotation marks. If you put a parameter value up here, you can optionally enclose it in quotes. So any one of the parameters here, other than value, you can replace by putting a quoted string in place of the parameter. But remember, they always have to be in order. This order, or this order. So the first parameter is the prompt, the second parameter is the default. We'll go through a demonstration now showing how different combinations of parameters work in terms of the program actually running. Let's start the demo with the value. The only parameter used is value, which is the one required because it contains a return value from the user. None of these are used because their variable names don't appear in the call list. The default is no prompt, show choices yes, and choices you may enter any string, and that's what it shows here. So anything can be entered and will work. You can add a parameter by putting the name here, and again I have a prompt up at the top. Incidentally, don't use the word prompt. There's a system variable named prompt. It will cause you some problems. You have to misspell it a little bit. So now it should say enter any value. We'll demonstrate. Now let's go ahead and use this default, so I'll have to add it to the parameter list. That's one way to use it. Now when I hit return, it returns the value none given that's specified right here. Let's replace the word prompt with an X. That's an undefined variable name. X is a variable that's not defined. That's the way you eliminate a variable in the middle of the list. Now the prompt has disappeared, even though I eliminated a parameter in the middle of a list of parameters, not on the end. And again, you can delete the names on the end to get rid of those parameters and use the system defaults. As long as you don't leave any gaps, use delete from right to left. So if your call looked like this, you could delete show choices, or choices and show choices, or through default or through prompt. You could delete any of those that way. You have to delete them in order from the right. And again, though, you can put X or any other undeclared variable in the middle to get rid of a prompt that's not on the end. Or you can get rid of the definition here if it's being used, or you can get rid of the whole line if the name is here. So there's a lot of different ways to get rid of the parameters. Again, though, quotes are optional up here. Same effect if you have or don't have the quotes up here. If you put values in the call, you must enclose them in quotes. Quote on each end of anything you put in there. The default, again, is none given because the word is in the call and that is defined up here. So if I press enter, none given. If you have a bunch of calls in your program that use almost exactly the same parameters, you might want to set them this way. If you have a bunch of calls in your program that use different sets of parameters, you might want to set them by putting the values in the calls. Any of those work. I'll demonstrate what happens when the programmer forgets to put any of the parameters in the getString call. I'll just get rid of them this way. Now I'll execute it. This message is produced by the getString function. Call to getString is missing the return value parameter, returning error code 99 to caller. What you could do if you wanted is modify the getString function so it just quit right here and didn't even return to the calling program. Your choice. The way it's programmed now, it will return with that error code. Then the calling program has this code testing it. As we've discussed before, it then displays this message, error 99 returned from the caller. Press any character to terminate file, test, get, string. Remember, this name of the file comes out of this special character combination. That's the name of the test file. It's test_getString. And then press any key to continue, and when you do, it exits the program, closes the window. The next video, I'll do a very detailed walkthrough of the getString function. I will point out pitfalls to avoid, and I will show you little sections of code that do special purposes as we're processing the getString function. Thanks for watching my video. If you like this video, please click my name, Thomas Wallace, to visit my channel page to watch my other videos.